So I think everyone is saying ableist things and then backing up. Like everyone is on a learning curve for everything all the time.
Yeah.
And either you're actively participating in the learning curve or you're kind of ignoring it or you're bucking against the learning curve. I think
Yeah.
all of us are on that curve somewhere.
Right.
And the
Right.
more immersed you are with the modeling, you're seeing people around you, the people you surround yourself with. It's being around people and immersed with people who have the same values, but also, I feel like for me, are aspirational
Mhm.
in terms of the way they can understand their own values and they can embody them and how they can like act them out.
Mhm. Hi, this is Caitlin, and welcome back to Untangling Ourselves. Today I'm here with Rayne Depukat. They're an ASL translator, and I'm excited to talk to them because they're one of the best people I know to talk to about disability justice. They're also a neurodiversity consultant. And hey, Rayne, I'm happy to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. And I will add, I am a translator, but also more commonly an interpreter. There is a slight difference between the two, but I
Oh,
do.
okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. What's the difference?
Yeah, so as an autistic person, I like to get pretty nerdy with it.
Uh huh.
But the difference is that translation goes from what we call a frozen text to a frozen text,
Okay.
meaning if you're using spoken language like English and Spanish, let's say, you would take something that was recorded in English
Uh
and
huh.
make it recorded in Spanish, or
Okay.
you would have something written in Spanish and create something written in English.
Uh huh.
With signed languages, it's usually a video is
And
the
yeah.
documentation. So
Yeah.
translation is from something written down or something that's been previously recorded, but interpretation is live.
Okay. Well, I'm always learning something when I talk to you.
Mm.
So I wanted to talk to you about your perspectives on disability justice and how you maintain that lens. But first, do you want to get into a little bit about your background and how you got into this?
Sure, and I will try to keep it clear because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll try and keep it a little more simple and then you can always ask questions. There's so much. I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to kind of tell the story. My life was not very typical, I think, of people in general.
Yeah.
Um, and so I even forget large chunks where I'm like, oh, wait, this whole other thing happened. Um, and I was just talking to my mother the other night about this, and we were reminiscing and both going, wow, I totally forgot about that 5 years where this thing happened or that thing happened. So my parents were already separated when I was born.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always lived with I started out living with my mother as a baby, and we didn't really have anywhere to live. And so we stayed with a couple of, people here and there, and I was only a couple months old. And then we were taken in by a family we had never met through a church that my mom was attending at the time. They just asked, would anyone be willing to help out, a new single mother and a newborn? And so this family of two adults and four kids decided to take us in. So somebody brought us there, literally, like in the middle of the night. I was like 2 months old. And my mom was just like, didn't have any money, didn't have a car. And just, she said it was like being brought into the forest in the middle of the night, which the
Ooh.
house that they lived in at the time was in a town that was not very built up at the time.
Uh-huh.
And so the house it was dark. There was tons of trees. It was like my mom's from right outside Boston. So
Uh-huh.
I always think like I don't know how she did it, but I think she just figured she had no choice. And so we got there and my mom realized it was a family that she had seen before at the church and the youngest child, she didn't know at the time, but he was deaf.
Mm.
And so he was 7. So we're exactly like 7 years apart. The other kids were all older. And she had seen him around like the church and events and stuff and was like, what's up with this kid? Because he didn't really sign. They had tried everything else, which is pretty common for parents,
Mm.
hearing parents with deaf kids. And so his behavior was really sort of all over the place. And my mom was like, what's going on here? So we moved in and, she didn't need to pay for anything. She would just help out around the house and then help like take care of the kids and things like that.
Hmm.
And so it was a really good deal for us. And so we ended up living with them for years, off and on for many years. And then that youngest kid was how I learned sign language
Okay. So you
because
knew it early.
he didn't, yeah, he didn't have sign. And so my mom actually was like, people kept thinking, oh, he has an intellectual disability, he has this, and she has a sister with an intellectual disability. And she was like, that's not what's going on here. Like
Yeah.
what's going on here? So she gathered information and was like, oh, there's like schools for deaf kids. I think this kid's just deaf and not anything else. Like I think it's communication. So my mom took ASL classes and became pretty fluent. And I would go with her when I was like 3 years old at night in the classes, and I'd sit under her desk and play. And then the
Hmm.
teacher would come over and sign with me on breaks and stuff. So I started signing, she said, about like 5 months old, which is
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
um, very possible. My daughter started signing a few signs at like 3 or 4 months old. And so as I call him my brother because we grew up together and we played together and all that, who's deaf. He was learning sign as I was learning sign. So for a
Hmm.
long time, we were on the same level.
Hmm.
Then he went away to a deaf school finally, and he came home, and it was just like totally different atmosphere. Like we were
Uh-huh.
just not in the same solar system anymore.
So you had like a visceral experience of like the difference that deaf culture makes. This
Oh
person
yeah. And we
changed.
were we were spending time with other deaf people. But it was mostly families that had one deaf kid. Or
Hmm.
it was mostly one deaf person in a family, which my brother was. And, they say like roughly 90% of deaf and hard of hearing people are born to hearing parents.
Mm.
So the majority of deaf and hard of hearing people have hearing parents, and the majority of them don't learn sign. And so there's a lack of communication, basic communication in the home, right, for deaf
Hmm.
people. And so what my brother experienced was language deprivation, which we now know is detrimental to the brain and all kinds of stuff. Thankfully, he was able to go away to a deaf school, and he's
Yeah.
doing great now. Like he's a great person. He's well adjusted, like all this kind of stuff. But if my mom hadn't really, really pushed, I don't know. And this was, in the early 80s. Like people really were really focused on making deaf people speak and use hearing
Mm.
aids.
Hmm.
And so then he became like glue to my mom. And then him and I would play all the time.
Yeah.
And he always would ask everyone if I was deaf or hearing.
Well,
He'd
because
ask
you
me.
you could communicate and
Because,
stuff.
yeah, I could communicate,
Yeah.
and we were kind of the same, like, level, and he only knew deaf kids who could sign like that.
Hmm.
And so he was like, we'd play and play and play, and he'd look at me and go, are you deaf or hearing? And I'm like, I'm hearing. And he's like, no, you're not. Stop fucking tricking me. And I'm like, no, I'm hearing. And I would always be like, why does he think he sees me walking around talking to people? Why does he think that I'm? But I was like, okay, and then we'd play and play and play, and then he'd come back and go, wait, are you deaf or hearing? Really? Tell me the truth. And
Yeah.
I'm like, and I always thought we've known each other for years. We were little kids, but I was like, so then I'd be like, ask my mom. And then he'd go over to my mom and be like, is Rayne deaf or hearing? And I was like, hearing, remember? And then he's like,
It's so cute.
yeah, it was the cutest thing. At the time, I was littler than him, but I remember looking up at him being like, why do you keep asking me that? Like,
Uh-huh.
why would I lie? And
Because you
so
had no concept of this being like unusual
for
in the
him,
world.
I didn't have the
Yeah.
concept of his experience
Yeah.
necessarily. I had my experience, which was I thought every family had one deaf person in it.
Yeah. Yes. That's
And
how
so,
kids think.
yeah, because I was like, well, because the people I knew, a lot of them had a deaf person in their family because we were spending time with them. But I knew a lot of people who didn't. So I don't know what my thought was there. But
You
I
were like,
remember
where's your deaf person?
that's literally what I started saying to people. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, who's the deaf person? Like, you don't, well, who's your deaf person in your family? And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, they didn't even know what deaf meant.
Hmm.
And I'd be like, well, and then I was like, oh, they haven't met them yet. Like they're probably a
That's
distant.
adorable. Oh, that's adorable. Oh, that's awesome though.
And I was like, you'll meet them. That's how, like in my head, I'm like, okay, they'll meet them at some point. And I would say,
Disability is going to be part of your family. It already is, whether you know it or not. It's
yeah,
just like a fundamental toddler thought, but also
yeah.
very profound, right?
I will say I was older than a toddler.
Yeah.
It definitely was into elementary school where people would come to my house and then we'd be signing at home or my brother would be there. And then I remember suddenly going like, oh, I think it was in middle school where I finally was like, oh, people haven't seen this before.
Yeah.
Because when I was younger than that, I went to, so I also went to like 10 different schools before I dropped out in my junior year. So I did first grade in public school, and then it was like, now we moved back to Massachusetts. Now we're back
Mm-hmm.
with the original family,
Mm-hmm.
living in their house, going to that church again, which had now grew and now had its own school.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to school there from second grade to fifth grade. It was
Okay.
inside of the church, which the church was in an industrial park. So the church was not a church. It was like, if you've seen the show The Office,
Uh-huh.
it was kind of like in a building like that.
Oh,
Like,
very 80s. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
except it was like one floor. Right behind us in a very similar building was a Coca-Cola distribution center. The other side had a Marriott hotel.
Uh-huh. Oh God.
So there was a big parking lot between us and the Marriott hotel.
Uh-huh.
We used to ride a shopping cart down the parking lot for
Yeah.
entertainment because we didn't have swings or the
Yeah, you didn't
slide
have a
or
playground. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There was also a broken down bus that we used to play games on. Yeah, it was pretty pathetic. So most of the rooms didn't have windows.
Uh-huh.
And so the classrooms mostly did not have windows. And they were big classrooms with like three grades in them. And you were basically, they started out just doing homework, Christian homeschooling books where you would sit and just do the work yourself.
Yeah.
Um, but literally, they started making us stand up during math lessons. You weren't allowed to sit, and they would be sometimes 3 hours long.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and he would stand at the board and go, "Okay, one," and write a one on the board,
Mm-hmm.
divided by two, no, and then erase one of the numbers with his finger.
While
And I
you're
go, that
standing
was
there.
it. That was the whole thing. And so they had a demerit system. And if you got three demerits, then you would get detention. I never got in regular trouble. I would get in trouble for stuff they made up or
Uh-huh.
that I was accused of. They really liked making up stuff. I don't know why. Probably because I would point things out that were wrong and
Yeah.
they knew my mom was the same way. And so maybe that's probably why I would get accused of things. But I never was like a troublemaker. I never got
Mm-hmm.
in trouble. But I started getting in trouble and my mom was like, why is this happening? Like Rayne does not do this kind of stuff. Like what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And so she was suspicious of them, which at the time I thought, oh my God, they're going to tell her something and they're going to convince her, that I'm doing
Yeah.
something wrong. So there was, I kept trying and then I was like, you know what? I'm not going to try anymore. I couldn't do the times tables tests consistently. So I didn't have recess for, I don't know, a year
Oh God.
because they would just make me keep taking the test over and over again until I got 100. And I would
Oh
never
my
get
God.
100
Oh my
because I would
God.
get different ones
That's
wrong.
so bad. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I also have a math disability. So I eventually started going, you know what? The math thing is starting. Instead of standing up and hoping I can make it and not being able to pay attention, I just started taking a demerit right at the beginning.
Uh-huh.
Then I could sit
Yeah.
and actually try to do the work.
Uh-huh. You made your own accommodation.
Yeah. And to me, I was like, I'm probably going to get a demerit for something anyway, because you'd get
You
a
might
demerit
as
if
well
you
just
like,
do it.
yeah, if you weren't looking at the board,
Oh my God.
they'd give you a demerit. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm just going to sit because then
Yeah.
I've got my demerit. And usually you wouldn't get more than one for the same activity.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I think that's smart, right?
Uh-huh.
So I'd be like, I'll have a demerit now because I'm going to sit. And then everyone else would be standing and shifting and like for like, and it's 2.5 hours going on 3 hours.
Oh
And I'm
God.
like happy sitting. I'm
Yeah.
like, if you're going to make me, be in trouble, then I'm going to do it for a good reason. Right.
Yeah.
My mom ended up coming and observing because she was concerned. We just talked about this actually. And she was sitting right there watching. I remember she was looking at what he was doing, at making people stand up. And I was like, I'm not going to act any different. That was my
Uh-huh.
plan. I was like, I'm not going to act any different. So I took a demerit. I sat and I was like, I don't know. I think I'm going to get in trouble. And she looked so pissed. And she kept looking at me and looking out. And I was like, oh my God, she's going to be mad
But
at
she was
me
mad at the
even.
teacher. Yeah.
Because they were so good at just making stuff up and gaslighting or whatever.
Yeah.
She took me out of the school that day.
Mm-hmm.
She was like really big.
Mm-hmm.
So I left and I was there for second, third, fourth, fifth. So there was stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I had all this school trauma from that school religious experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd only gone to public school for 1 year prior to that in first grade. And then before that was doing homeschooling in a very religious setting.
Yeah.
And then we were still in the church, just not in the school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was with the same people, I had the same friends. And my mom was just getting more and more fed up, like with the church. Um, and she was just like, this is unacceptable. Like, we're leaving right now. And so I left in the middle of the day from that school.
Yeah.
And then going to a public school after I hadn't been in public school for years and joining a class the last 3 months of the year was pretty wild.
Yeah.
I changed schools a bunch more times. And then I went to a private school, a private art school for freshman and sophomore year,
Mm.
which is a very, very expensive school that I went to, financial aid and scholarships and stuff. Like really, really rich people. But it was
Mm-hmm.
also very arts focused, it's very different, but extremely academically rigorous that I wasn't, also was like, I don't know how to, been very self-driven.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like everyone just did their work. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's you do it. You figure it out. You could get help and all that, but it was like they weren't going to micromanage you. And for me, I had not had any space or support to figure out executive functioning for myself.
Yeah.
I didn't have an ADHD diagnosis. I had no diagnoses at the time.
Yeah.
So it was a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Moved to California with my mom and my brother
Mm-hmm.
and couldn't adjust to California. Came from Boston. I was like, nope. I was like 15. Like this is not working. It was Northern California. Everything closed at like 6 p.m. Like and Applebee's would close at 6 p.m. I was like, what is happening here? It was in, wine country area. Smelled
Okay.
a lot like cow poo and,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Yeah.
they had days they would fertilize and stuff. And it just wasn't, I would go down to San Francisco, which was cool,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it just didn't fit me at the time. And I was just like done with school. It's just a long history of school stuff, school stuff. So when I got to California, I finally was like, that's it, I'm dropping out.
Yeah.
I then eventually end up doing a bunch of retail management and food service and all other kind of junk. I got my GED. And
Mm-hmm.
then I eventually decided to go to college in my 20s only because I discovered that American Sign Language interpreting was a job.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that people did it as a job. I think most people don't unless they've encountered it
Mm-hmm.
because I get people every day that are like, this is your job? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
wow. I never thought about that being a job. So when I first got interested in interpreting and was like, well, I'll check it out. I don't know if I'm going to go to college for this, but I'm going to take one class.
Yeah.
And it was at a school that offered the degree for interpreting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a class, Sociocultural Perspectives on the Deaf Community.
Hmm.
Up my alley, big long name.
Yeah.
Taught by a deaf professor. And it had interpreters, which I did need because I did not have the language for that content at the time. I got into the class and immediately was obsessed.
Yeah.
My mom was living in California. She agreed to pay for the class because she's like, go to college, go to college. And she was making a little more money now. So I was like, okay, I don't know how. She's like, I'll pay for the one class. Just go see. And she's like,
Yeah.
hoping I'm going to go to college. And I was in retail management still. And I was like, I don't want to do this forever. And so I took the class and I was like, oh my God, this is everything. And the
Mm-hmm.
only reason I was interested in going to that program, I went to New Hampshire to take it, was because the way they described it in the program, they talked about being deaf as a cultural and linguistic minority.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about the identity of it, and other programs didn't do that at the
Yeah,
time.
they just here's
And
a
I was like,
language to learn.
oh, because I didn't necessarily know those words for that.
Yeah.
It was all gut still.
Right.
And
Well,
so
and your own childhood experience too, but yeah.
yeah, it was gut instinct in terms of like what I knew about deaf people
Mm-hmm.
just based on my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I was like, I feel like that makes sense, right? So I ended up at that program, which was designed by somebody whose parents were deaf,
Mm-hmm.
and it really was deaf focused. But it was also very traumatic for me to see so many deaf kids whose parents weren't signing, to know they were going to end up where my brother had ended up, where he had ended up kind of isolated. Nowadays, he's not.
Yeah.
Um, but he was for a long time, and nobody in the family could communicate with him the way that my mom could or I could.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in California living with my mom, and I was in Massachusetts living with his parents. And he came home for a visit from California, and it was after I was in the interpreting program. And so I was talking with him a little bit, and I was like, wow, he's completely changed.
Yeah.
And I was as I'm talking to him, I'm like, wow, did he change this much in California? Because we all lived together in California too. So I had spent a lot of time with him. But I'm like, did he change that much? And I don't remember if it was the end of the conversation or it was later on. It was like, ding, oh my God, I completely changed.
And you were able to connect with him in that
I could
way.
understand him. He
Yeah.
could sign differently with me. I was signing different. And
Mm.
I was like, he's a different person. And I was like, oh no.
You just didn't have the space to know him
I
before.
didn't know him like I thought I knew him. And the more I learned in the program, and the more I learned as an interpreter, and the more he ended up moving, him and my mom ended up moving back, and he lived with my mom. They were roommates for a long time. So I'd see him a lot, and I was just like, I was so wrong that it was painful. And I actually had to grieve
Mm-hmm.
it. And it took me a number of
Mm-hmm.
years, actually, to
Yeah.
grieve my ignorance,
Yeah.
how we treated him sometimes. Um, how people in the family would talk about him. And I learned that those were things that all deaf people were experiencing pretty much if they were from
Yeah.
hearing families. And I was like, oh no. So I'd call my mom when she was in California with him or when they were back, and I'd be like, oh my God, I learned this. And it reminded me of this. And she's like, oh no. Like
While
she had
she's
the
living
same,
with him and you guys
yeah.
are
And she would,
processing your, yeah.
it's inefficient to get upset without addressing accessibility first. That's
That
one
is,
of
there you go.
that's one of the ways I think about it.
Yeah. Were you and your mom still in the church at this point? Were you still?
Let's see. We left the church when we were in living in the Boston area. So it was prior to going to California,
Okay.
that we transitioned out of that extreme church
Yeah.
and into a well-known sort of large church in the Massachusetts area, which was less intense. So they're all evangelical, born again,
Yeah.
but all the ones we were in. But this one was it was much more subdued. It had a
Mm-hmm.
very large sanctuary, it could hold like thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a little more traditional in that sense. They
So
were
that
less,
was kind of a slow transition, it sounds like.
yes.
Moving
And
out
it
of
wasn't
that.
totally clear to me what was happening exactly. But she then transitioned completely out of that as
Mm.
well.
Mm-hmm. So when you left California by yourself, were you still considering yourself Christian evangelical?
No, no,
No.
no. When I in my freshman and sophomore year of high school, I was still trying to figure it out, and I didn't really believe it, but also I didn't realize how ingrained it was
Mm.
because my dad's whole family is also extremely heavily into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how my mom got into it. And so that whole side of the family was also very, very into it.
So it was pretty culturally immersive for you, like Christian
Oh,
evangelicalism is like
everywhere. Everywhere.
water you swim
Yes,
in. Yeah.
everywhere. Yeah. So it was fully immersive because my mom's friends were in the church. My friends were in the church. My friends, mostly their parents were the pastors, the deacons, the people in charge.
Yeah.
Um, I also spent after school time there. The people who babysat me once in a while, they were all from the church. Like
Yeah.
they did not encourage talking with people outside of the church. My mom always had friends that were outside of the church,
Hmm.
but it, as a single parent, I think it became really immersive because it was our whole support network.
Yeah.
And she didn't realize how immersive it was to me and how harmful it was to me because she didn't agree with a lot of it.
Mm. So your mom always had some doubts and kind of eased out having other connections. But for you,
Yes.
like, how did you work your way out of that if it was so immersive? And
I think part of it was I don't remember, my mom and I have talked about this. I don't remember her saying certain things that she said she was very, like, careful to make sure she did say. For example,
mm,
if they were talking about homosexuality, my mom would be like,
hmm
well, I don't really agree with that.
hmm
Like, she would tell me, I don't really agree with that. And I knew gay people, unlike most of the people in my church. My mom's family, who was very not religious at all, uh, were all in the theater and
mm,
musicians and stuff. I knew lots of gay people from the theater, from bands, from just the art scene that they were all involved in. Like I always knew gay people.
yeah,
But it's just we were so immersive in the church and I was so young that it's like to me, I just assumed that she was on board with everything they were doing and saying.
yeah,
'Cause as a kid, I think you do.
yeah.
But then I would have these doubts. And when I tell my mom about them now, like, oh, I remember this, and she'd be like, oh yeah, they came and talked to me about that. Because I
About
would
how
be
you
questioning.
questioning things. Yeah.
Yeah, like they got a bunch of church adults, got all the kids in one of the big classrooms, but it was school day. It was like, I think it was like a church day. They would separate the kids and the adults
Hmm.
always at church. And so they had all the adults in the sanctuary, and then a bunch of the adults did this for the church or whatever, organized this, came and talked to like all the kids, which was a huge room of like just all different age kids. And they were talking to us. It was one of the many, many, many times where they're like explaining what I remember specifically word for word and what everyone looked like was the everyone has to be born again to go to heaven.
Mm,
You could be a good person. They say, I hear people all the time say, oh, but I'm a good person or they're a good person. And they do all these good things for the world and they help people. And it's sad, but that's not enough.
hmm
They will go to hell. They will burn in a lake of fire for eternity.
hmm
And then they would go, you have to be born again. But in my head, I'm sitting there going, first of all, that doesn't seem fair.
Yeah.
Just one, like off the top of my head, right? Like off the dome, unfair. Because that's always my first like pattern recognition.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That seems extreme and unfair. And then it was like, so I was like, well, okay, so what if somebody doesn't get the chance because they live somewhere or they're a little kid or they like, if they don't know even that this exists, how are they supposed to, why would there be a rule about this? It doesn't make any sense. So
Yeah.
they're like, God will make sure that everyone has an opportunity. They'll be presented with the choice before they're dead.
That's quite a claim.
And then I was like, so, like, raise my hand again. So, what you're saying is that, like, if somebody lives their whole life sinning up a storm, and then suddenly they're about to die, and then God appears to them and is like, do you want to go to heaven or hell? Like, now's
Yeah.
your opportunity. And they're like, oh, I'd like to, now that I know it's real,
Uh-huh.
I'd like to go to heaven, please. Yes, I accept you as my, you know, Lord and Savior. Then they get to go. But if I lived my whole life because I happen to be born into this, and I live my whole life trying to do the right thing, and I'm born again and whatever, but then I mess up these sins that you're telling me about, then I don't get to go either. Like,
Yeah.
and they were like, well, that's not what. Then they had
Yeah.
some other
Too many
thing.
questions.
Yeah. And I was like literally, I think in second grade. And I will say that was also a very important experience, that specific instance, because I remember all of that. And then I remember they basically stopped taking my questions. And then they basically was like, well, God knows what's in your heart.
Which is kind of the opposite of the original premise.
Correct. But they were like, no, you can't just get, because I was like, well, what if I live whatever way I want, and then I know before death that I'm going to get a chance to, and they're like, no, God knows your heart, so God knows if you're doing that. So I was like, okay, so basically we're screwed. Like, you're basically telling me there's just like no, like I just have to be perfect and born again and not mess up. Because you can be born again and still sin and then still go to hell.
Mm-hmm.
It was very
Mm-hmm.
tricky. And I just thought, this doesn't seem possible. Like it seems like an impossible thing to reach for. So that's when I decided, right at that conversation, when they were like, God knows your heart, you can't get away with it, whatever. And then they just wouldn't take any more questions.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, in my head, I thought, well, if this is true, then that means that I'm definitely going to go to hell because even if the God is real and this is exactly correct what they're saying to me, I don't think that's right or fair. And so
Mm-hmm.
I refuse to participate.
Mm-hmm.
I was
You
just
were
like,
you were ready to take the demerit. I just
I was.
I'll take my demerit now.
That's hilarious. That's exactly what it was. And I thought, and you know what? It made me kind of sad because I was like, with all of this, it feels like if this is the way God really is, then God's an ass.
Yeah.
Like, God sounds like a terrible, terrible person, entity, whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was like, and I don't want to support that. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be part of this. And I thought I'm not gonna yeah, it's not, and I remember in second grade, I just remember thinking, I don't think this is gonna work out for me. So what the experience that I was having was, and even into like well into my adulthood, well into like maybe even close to the time I had my daughter, who's now going to be 14 soon, I still had that same kind of conflict that I described before, where I was like, I'm not going to support a God who behaves that way.
Mm-hmm.
So if God really is doing this, I think it's wrong and I think it's cruel and I am not okay with it. And I refuse to follow a God like that.
Mm-hmm.
If God is not like that and is more like what you learn a lot of times about God, then I'm already good
Mm-hmm.
because I think I'm doing my best,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But I also had a lot of dysfunction and stuff, family dysfunction and other things. So I always was struggling with, am I a good kid or a good bad kid or a good person, bad
Mm.
person? Really struggled with that a lot.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of other autistic people identify with that, even if they don't have that super dysfunctional environment. So I think
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
compounded for me. And then with the religious stuff, and I was also being punished, accused of things or whatever, always within the church, within the school. So it was like all those layers were kind of happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
And over time it morphed into I thought, well, I don't know that I believe in like God per se, but I kind of got into this like Spinoza's God, which is like the idea that there's something and it's causing
Mm-hmm.
things to happen that then
Mm-hmm.
cause other things to happen, but there's not someone up there going, you get cancer and you don't,
Uh-huh.
which made perfect sense to me
Yeah.
when I learned about it. And I learned about it actually from someone in Al-Anon who talked about it. And I was like, that's what I've been looking for. And that was a transition for me into atheism.
Okay.
So I think the church was right. The second I started fraternizing with people outside the church, going to a secular school, doing art, talking to people outside the church, yeah, it was like atheism all the way. Made me super evil.
There's so many different like levels of conflict in your childhood
Yeah.
mind. like the sensory and the like empathy and sense of justice for everything, and then the religious and the doubts and
I think that's well
wanting
put.
to do school and then feeling guilty
Mhm.
that you're never doing it right. That's it's just
Yes.
like there's so much
It's
contradiction,
true.
you know?
That's a really good point. Um,
Yeah. So how did you get to the point where you could recognize these stories as being about disability? Like,
um, I didn't start saying that I was disabled or that I had any disabilities until after my daughter was born. So it wasn't until my, I'm really bad with numbers, but I want to say it was probably in my 30s.
okay. So
Um,
there's a whole time where you were just a young adult and you were like, I'm gonna just manage, basically.
yes, and I was also going, I can't manage this.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
frequently like, why can't I do this? Why does it seem like other people can function and I can't function? Why am I really good at some things and then I can't function at all in these other areas? But it's also for me about it's deeply like ingrained in my set of values, how I like really, really, really feel about the world, people, you know, everything, plants, animals. Like I'm just like it's how I think about everything. I've always been obsessive about what is equitable, what's fair and unfair, what's harmful, and I've been always extremely sensitive to that, even as a
Mm-hmm.
very, very little child. My mom would be like, it was a very high emotive, very conflicting kind of way of being. And I feel like that carried through from the very first moments I remember, which were, I was very young, to like now I still deal with that. But
Mm-hmm.
finding out that I was autistic as an adult, that's where that started to calm down
Mm-hmm.
because I was able to go, okay, these are the things that are happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are the reasons that I'm not a bad person. I'm not a difficult person. I'm not, a high demand person because that was oftentimes how people viewed me.
Yeah.
And instead, and I'm not just like sensitive and instead I'm having this like real turmoil
Mm-hmm.
about conflicting values, which it's still very hard for me to hold multiple things as true.
Yeah.
I think that's a common thing a lot of autistic people that, I've talked to struggle with sometimes is we have very strong feelings and then it's like, well, but I have strong feelings in both directions.
Mm-hmm.
Now what? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's another reason why I think being autistic and having anxiety is kind of
Yeah.
it's a twofer.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Well, I'm curious, like in your 20, let's say between 15 and whenever you started being a parent and pursuing diagnosis, you were not managing, or you were just wondering why you weren't managing, basically. You
Yeah.
also, during that time, became an interpreter.
Hmm.
And when you became an interpreter, did you start seeing things through a disability justice lens? Did that come with that process? Or was it just a job for a while?
That's a really good question. It's an interesting question. I think the best way I could answer that is to say that I grew up around people who were disabled, but in different ways, and it was called different things. With my aunt, who prefers the term special,
Mm-hmm.
and on my mom's side, and that being she lived with us for a while when I was really little as well. So that was like very and we hung out with groups that she was part of, like People First,
Mm-hmm.
and disability rights groups and things like that. And we were around a lot of people like that. So that was very normal to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then spending time with the other deaf people and other deaf people we knew when I was growing up were mostly deaf people with multiple disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
for the most part. And if they weren't, they were deaf people who didn't really have language, so had language deprivation, which is now considered a disability, but
Mm-hmm.
not quite yet in the DSM. It should be,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of research to back that up. So I was spending a lot of time with disabled people as sort of a norm.
Yeah.
My mother also was really chronically ill from the time that she got really, really ill when I was in like middle school,
Mm-hmm.
and for a number of years was very, very, very ill. So that was all the norm, like to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was, I found that I made friends with kids who had disabilities, but I didn't always realize that until later when I would
Mm-hmm.
look back and be like, oh yeah, that kid actually had disabilities.
So making accommodations was just like part of your life for a long
Yeah, it
time
was very
then.
normal, and
Yeah.
that was how my mom always was. And my mom's younger than her sister, and there's five kids, but my mom was right below her, and my mom had to take care of all the kids because of the dynamic. So she became like my aunt's interpreter because my aunt couldn't really talk in
Mm-hmm.
when she was really young. They said she wouldn't talk, she wouldn't walk, she wouldn't ride a bike. They also told my grandmother to put her in an institution, which was
Mm-hmm.
what happened in the 50s for sure.
Yeah.
But my grandmother was also like, no. So like all of that was normal stuff in my family. And so it never felt like necessarily that I was accommodating other people. I
Mm-hmm.
think people like when people they didn't have any deaf people in their family. They didn't know what the word deaf meant. They didn't know that some people are disabled. Like I really had trouble connecting with them, I think.
Mm.
So I think I would end up more likely to connect with people who either understood that experience or were
Mm-hmm.
living that experience.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a lot of people that I can look back and I'm like, they were definitely autistic now that I
Mm-hmm.
have the information I have. And some people I
Yeah.
found out later that
Yeah.
they were,
Which makes sense.
you know.
The thing that I'm most interested in with you is like, how did you get to the point where disability justice is just it like when I talk to you, it feels like it just comes easily to you, you know? Like
Yeah.
for me, I feel like I have to like say ableist things and then be like, wait a second, and like backtrack myself and unwind that a bit. And when I talk to you, it's like, oh, of course, like the person's autonomy is centered. Of course, we can think about these accommodations. Of course, it feels obvious. It's part of the reason I like talking to you about stuff. Um,
So I think it's everyone is saying ableist things and then backing up. Like everyone is on a learning curve for everything all the time.
yeah,
And either you're actively participating in the learning curve or you're kind of ignoring it or you're bucking against the learning curve. I think
yeah,
all of us are on that curve somewhere.
right,
And the
right.
more immersed you are with the modeling, you're seeing people around you, the people you surround yourself with, whether it's in digital space, in virtual space, in, you know, face to face with people, whatever, or combination. It's being around people and immersed with people who have the same values, but also I feel like for me are aspirational
Hmm.
in terms of the way they can understand their own values and they can embody them and how they can like act them out
Hmm.
so that I can have people to look to go, I really like this about that person or the way that they operate. I really like how that person has a really like friendly, fun relationship with their child.
Hmm.
That's something I want. I don't know how to get that.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna spend time with them. I'm gonna talk to them. I'm gonna observe. I'm gonna join them and their kid if I can't, like
Yeah.
whatever I need to do. And then somebody else, oh, this person really, really is good at this particular thing, or I really admire this about them, and I want to embody that. So it's
Hmm.
just the more we're around that, I think part of why people think sometimes that it's easy for me, because you're not the only person that said that, which is, I don't feel like that's true. It might be easier for me than for some other people, for sure. I think
Hmm.
that's true. But it's also like, I think about these things 24/7, 365 because one, it's an interest area of mine.
Yeah.
So I'm basically hyper focusing on it all the time. And two, it's the way my brain works is just to think over and over and over and then use that new information and analyze everything around me using that new information.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it appears to people a lot of times like I'm kind of the duck who's like smooth on top of the water. Is it a duck? And then the feet are paddling. That's my mind, just like doot 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 doot. Because I'm even having dreams about it usually.
Uh-huh.
It's just it's
Uh-huh.
all encompassing,
Yeah.
which to me as an autistic person, as a person with ADHD, like that's my natural way of being,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I enjoy being, is thinking about things that I enjoy or and that are interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that can lend itself to looking like it's easier when
Yeah.
it would be if it was anything else that I wasn't interested in, it would be incredibly difficult.
Right.
Um, but when you're, for lack of a better word, when you're waking up to it,
Mm-hmm.
like I was always aware of disability. I was always aware to an extent, as much as I can, as a white person who was assigned female at birth and socialized that way, until I was much older. And like there were certain things that I was not going to personally experience. But I had a big awakening with feminism that was, you know, progressive feminism, like I'm trying to think what wave, where feminism is about everyone.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point of entry for me. And it
Mm-hmm.
was the point of entry was disabled, primarily disabled queer people, disabled Black women, disabled, like that was kind of my entry point.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went in reading because it was a lot online and listening and learning a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it started to take root. So I needed that, even though I feel
Yeah.
like I came with a lot. I came to the table with a lot.
Yeah.
I had to unlearn the religious stuff that was still in there
Mm-hmm.
because all of that is deeply patriarchal, deeply misogynistic, racist. It's just
Yeah.
it's everything. I mean, it's everything. They laid hands on deaf people to try to get them to hear while I was there. I
Yeah.
mean, like, yeah. So I needed that. So I feel like if someone's coming to it without all of that
Mm-hmm.
already, it takes a lot. It's not like
Yeah.
an easy thing, right? So I did that around the same time that I got pregnant. And that was I got pregnant at the same time that we were taking in our first foster child,
Mm-hmm.
who was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot going on. So I'm getting heavier into this sort of feminist thought that is intertwined with queer theory and disability justice and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I have people coming into my home who are supporting us as parents. We can call anytime because these are kids with extra, you know,
Yeah.
needs.
And at this point, you don't know you're autistic, but
No,
now looking back, yeah.
it's like painfully obvious.
And you
Look back.
hadn't really addressed like any of your own disabilities at this point,
No, I kind of,
not
I had
directly.
been, yeah, I had been thinking about ADHD for a while, but I was so sure that my husband had it. And he's the poster person for
Right.
ADHD,
And then
just like my
you're the
dad.
contrast. Yeah.
I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was so dysregulated and in such a bad place after my daughter was born. Everything with my daughter was good. I could bond with her. Like, I'm thankful for that. But my mental health just went out the window.
Yeah.
Then I started having symptoms of the neurological condition that I now have.
Mm-hmm.
So it was piling up,
Mm-hmm.
right? Things are getting added, and I just was like, I don't feel good. Like, I just
Mm-hmm.
feel bad. I just don't feel good. And so I was getting worse and worse. And I had a really good friend who identified as disabled, who was chronically ill, and who also had ADHD and some other mental health stuff. And they were talking about it, and I kept thinking, well, in all the spaces I'm in, this is how people are talking about disability. This person identifies as disabled. We're not exactly the same, but I'm having pain as just as much as they're having pain during the day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm unable to move and I have to lay down or stay in bed or lay on the couch just as much as they do, if not more. Like
Yeah.
maybe that is where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when people transition into that mindset, there's a lot of, again, it's the conflicting thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I'm not really disabled.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
people say to you, we don't look disabled. Well, what,
Right.
you know,
Right.
oh, you just need to exercise more. It's like, that's really not going to help. Um,
Well,
I
it's
had
almost like a through line from these parents not learning ASL to just your own self gaslighting of maybe I don't need to have this label. Maybe if I just tried harder,
that is a
you know,
100% accurate. I think
like,
and it also connects back to the idea of, the Trump regime not wanting to have interpreters because of it supposedly image.
mm-hmm,
Hearing parents, for the most part, care about their deaf children, deaf or hard of
mm-hmm,
hearing or deaf blind, but they don't know what they don't know. They don't have any access to it because the only information they get is medical.
yeah,
So they only hear from audiologists, they hear from cochlear implant surgeons, they hear
mm,
from, and
mm-hmm,
insurance companies will cover cochlears, but they
mm-hmm,
won't fully cover hearing aids.
mm,
They'll cover cochlear implants, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars, but that requires you drill into the skull, but they won't pay for hearing aids to go on the outside of the ear that are much
yeah,
cheaper. They won't pay, like, there's no money for learning ASL.
yeah,
There's no money. So it really just makes me think, as you pointed out, like it's a through line of course, ableism.
yeah,
Of course, it was autism, AUDISM, um,
mm,
which is what it sounds like. Auditory, spoken language, and hearing are considered, superior to
right,
everything else. But also, it's this facade, this keeping up appearances. One of the interesting things that happens, and I have seen very minimal written about this, but I've always wanted like someone to do a good research study. Most deaf kids, their parents, when you have like a mom and a dad, man and a woman pair, the dad will not sign or will sign very little.
yeah,
The mom is always the one who learns.
yeah,
And that's not necessarily because the mom is home more, because oftentimes that's not the case.
mm-hmm,
There's something about masculinity and signing,
mm-hmm,
because signing is seen as less masculine by hearing people
right,
because it's more performative.
mm,
So it's like, how women are expected to be more, uh, what's the word? Like activated, or like
emotive,
emotive, I think is the right word.
yeah,
They can be, they can use more of their voice. They can,
yeah,
because what I
yeah.
see is dads who are embarrassed to be signing.
Yeah. Well, that
And
kind of gets to the distraction thing, right? Because,
yeah.
like, even if it's not a man on stage, even if it's a woman on stage, especially for like a political event,
Hmm.
they're expected to have this professional speaker, non
Yeah.
emotive demeanor, you know?
Right.
At least that's our cultural norm. Like, you're
They
supposed
can't
to
move
conform.
around.
No, you're not supposed
Yeah.
to move around. You're not supposed to lean or, like
Yep.
anything. And so then,
God forbid someone sits.
yeah.
That's like really
God
weird.
forbid
Yeah.
someone sits, like the most you can do is drink water, but you're not even,
Yes. But
you're
only
not,
in a certain way. They'll criticize you if you don't drink it a certain way. I've seen that
yeah,
too. Has to
yeah,
be very like a normal sip.
uh-huh.
So
I
if you're
think,
somebody like me that needs to sit when I
yeah,
give a presentation and I drink out of a water bottle because I'm dehydrated by all my medications, so I
mm,
drink over a gallon of water a day.
mm-hmm,
I need to be, people don't always like all that stuff, or
mm-hmm,
they think it's less professional.
yeah.
But it's
Well,
like,
and then just having an interpreter up there introduces the
hmm
body in a
hmm
way that people
yeah.
can handle.
And it looks emotive to people who don't know the language. But
Mm,
the interpreter, if they're doing their job, which they usually are, they their affect is exactly the same as the person who's using a spoken language.
mm,
So the person who's speaking in English and they're speaking like this, We just wanted to inform everyone that, but that's what the interpreter
Is
sounds
doing.
like, quote unquote, for
Mm-hmm.
the deaf people. There's a different register,
Mm-hmm.
called a register in language, in linguistics. So they are doing that. It just
Mm-hmm.
looks different. And if you
Yeah.
see, so that's why it's always like, oh, the interpreter's over the top. Every interpreter knows, and every interpreter has experienced, ASL interpreters I'm speaking for, or sign language interpreters, have experienced being told that we're being distracting,
Mm-hmm.
that we're taking focus away from whatever else is happening, that we're distracting other people, like the non-deaf people that are there. Um, we should go to the back of the room. We should go in the hall. We
Mm.
should not interpret anything or sign at all until it's over and then sign everything to the deaf person. I know it's ridiculous, but it's common. Um, I just watched a video recently that came up in my memories that someone made uh, about being an interpreter and those kinds of things, and that was actually one of the scenarios. I'm like, oh yeah, that happens all the time.
Wow.
There's all kinds of things. Or like, do you have to do that when you're interpreting? And you're like, yeah, what did you think I was gonna do?
Uh-huh.
Always my question. When they say, well, can you go in the back of the room? And I'm like, well, then how would the deaf person see me? And they're
Yeah.
like, huh. Well, it's distracting a parent. I'm like, trust me, it's not. Like after 5 minutes, everyone will forget I'm here. It's
Yeah.
cool. People have been doing this forever. Don't worry. We got it. I'm always like, don't worry.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
then they go like, and it's only really them. I mean, I've worked with classrooms full of teenagers. The people that get distracted are the adults. And the
Yeah.
people that get worried about it, teachers often are flipped out. They do not want you at the front of the room.
Mm.
And it's like, if we work together, everyone could actually be more engaged
Mm-hmm.
because people
Mm-hmm.
like having an interpreter in their room. It can
Mm-hmm.
add a different dynamic. They want to hear what the deaf person has to say,
Yeah.
especially if they've never met a deaf person before, or
Mm-hmm.
they have and the deaf person couldn't talk, quote unquote, but now there's an interpreter.
Mm-hmm.
Deaf person contributes something. Everyone always goes, interesting. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a different perspective, you know? So it's
Yeah.
always weird to me that people are like, oh, well, that's going to detract from something. Because to me, accessibility is just addition of things. Yes, sometimes we have to remove something to make something more accessible. But in my mind, it's still a total gain.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's
Yeah.
just how I think about access, and I think a lot of us probably think about it.
Yeah.
But if you don't need it, or if you don't know you need it, like I spent all that time not knowing what I needed,
Yeah.
then I guess it can feel threatening or confusing or overstimulating to or something. It's out of the norm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
I
you
mean,
know,
earlier when you were saying, talking about surrounding yourself with people that are like aspirational,
hmm
that was such an interesting comment to me because a lot of times people that I know who are progressive are constantly disappointed and frustrated with the people around them.
yeah,
Um,
that's
and
very, very true.
yeah, and so in terms of, oh, I want to increase my disability justice literacy, I want to be able to get to that lens quicker.
hmm
A lot of people do that by being like, I need to be more critical, you know?
Which I will not say that I haven't done. Like
Yeah.
I think that that's a phase. It
Mm-hmm.
can be a phase. I think it's been a
Mm-hmm.
phase for me, but I also think that I still am that way, but I have curated the spaces that I'm in and where I spend my energy so that
Yes.
I don't have to be constantly doing that.
Yeah.
And I was lucky to come in at the disability justice place
Mm-hmm.
and then learn about all the other stuff after. And
Yeah. So
I
how what
honestly,
do you see as the difference between disability rights and disability justice?
that's the $10 million question, right? So I'm not going to say it as eloquently as some of the people I know who are really great at explaining this. Like, I don't know if you've seen stuff by Heather Watkins. She's a disabled Black person in Boston area,
Okay.
but she's done writing about it. She's also just a super nice person. But she's talked a lot about the differences. The main difference for me in coming into it is that disability justice was coined and defined by disabled people of color, queer
Mm,
and queer people and women. And it's a set of standards.
mm,
It's very clearly laid out. Disability rights came before disability justice.
mhm,
Disability justice is like the amplification and adding
mhm, mhm,
on, and really focused on like the intersectionality piece and all of that. Disability rights is like a historical period of time where people were fighting for basic rights for disabled people.
mhm,
So sometimes people talk about the ADA,
mhm. Yeah.
well, the ADA, and it's like, yes, great, the ADA was important. We just never went beyond it because the
Mhm,
ADA is like the floor
mhm,
or below the floor, depending on your definition. It doesn't go far enough, but it also doesn't go into all the intricacies of what it's like to be disabled and have multiple other marginalized identities, especially.
mhm, mhm.
I was so like the first one is intersectionality. That's the first principle
Yeah.
of disability justice. We do not live single issue lives. That's Audre Lorde who said.
Yeah.
So that's really about ableism, white supremacy, capitalism, all of that being part of it. You can't
Mhm,
untangle, for example, like ableism doesn't exist without white supremacy,
mhm,
which I remember learning that and being like, how? And then when I learned it, I was like, oh, makes perfect sense.
mhm.
Um, we don't have, anything. We don't have sexism without white supremacy. We don't have, because everything is kind of what you were referring to earlier. It's the sort of white male ideal that
Yeah.
doesn't emote much, doesn't move, just kind
Yeah.
of. So anything deviating from that, including being disabled, is not good. So I can send the list to you, but there's
Oh no,
10.
I pulled it up. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the
Some of,
leadership of the most impacted anti-capitalist politic, commitment to
yep.
cross-movement organizing, recognizing wholeness, sustainability, commitment to cross-disability solidarity, interdependence, collective access, and collective liberation. I think, what I mean when I say I'm misusing it is because I've worked with you as a consultant and because I'm often talking to you in the context of like, how do we work on the ableism in this situation? Or
Yeah.
how do we like center lived experience in this situation? Is very practical. So, kind of what you said earlier about like it's inefficient to get upset about something without considering access. That's
Hmm.
kind of where my conception has been going is that like you just can't really help a situation, any situation, without addressing accessibility, what's
Hmm.
going on from lived experience for each person, whatever their intersectional identities are. So I've
Yeah.
been thinking about it in a very like practical way.
Like an application.
Yeah, yeah. So even when we started this conversation, I was like, you always impress me that you keep disability justice front and center as your lens. I'm
Hmm.
thinking about access, basically. Like
Yeah.
that's basically efficiency and access and practical problem solving.
Yeah, that's interesting. Go ahead.
So reading all of this, and that's why I mean I'm using the word wrong because I'm not. I mean, in a way, this is what we're talking about the whole time, what you're telling
Right.
these stories, but um
We weren't talking
it's so
about it
much
as a set
more.
of principles. Like we weren't like
No.
saying the 10 principles of disability justice.
Hmm.
You're
I mean,
talking
all
more
of
about
this
like
is
the
in
ethos
here.
of it. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. All of this
It's
is in
all,
here, but it's,
yes,
hmm
exactly. And I think what you just described, where you said, this is how I was thinking about it, and this is what I see in your work, when you just said that
hmm
to me, touched on so many of these things,
yeah.
right? Because we may be talking about a particular challenge that you're consulting me about, and it may not include a person of color. Everyone
hmm
in the situation may be white,
hmm
for example. But that doesn't take away the fact that these other things still exist.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like, well, we weren't doing disability justice because we weren't talking about race or something.
Right.
It's like it's
Right.
more of, to me, the disability justice principles, it's very important that people are aware of them, that
Mm-hmm.
they are checking them, that they're reading them, that they're rereading them. Like I go back and reread them and I go
Mm-hmm.
back and watch the video of it because it's a lot. Every single principle is a lot, even just the top.
Yeah.
Like anti-capitalist politic, that's a lot, right? And
Not
it's a
just something you check off.
oh, anti-capitalist politic, perfect, done. That's like you do it every day in everything you do. Or in this moment, I'm choosing not to do that. I'm choosing I have to order things from Amazon
Right.
because I'm a disabled person. I live in a house full of disabled people,
Mm-hmm.
and none of us can get medicine another way. Or no, we
Mm-hmm.
can't get whatever the thing.
Or it's not sustainable to go searching through 20 other websites to figure out how to
Yeah.
do it because your
And
energy
there's
is already gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many reasons, right? Or it could be just total overwhelm. It could be I have to get the exact same thing every time for my child and I can't
Mm-hmm.
risk ordering it from anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's so many things that go into it. In the moment, I'm making a decision to do something that actually doesn't align with my values, which is shop at Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
But it does align with my values in the sense of I, as a disabled person, deserve to live a life that I have chosen. I deserve to live a life that feels safe, that feels comfortable, that's
Mm-hmm.
joyful, that has people in it that I want to have in it, doesn't have people in it that I don't want to have in it, and that I am guaranteed a future where I get to exist and
Mm-hmm.
other disabled people get to exist and that we're all collectively moving towards that. Like that's really the value. And
Yeah.
so in the moment, if I have to choose something and I'm in those conflicts because I'm like, should I buy this thing that's pre-cut, even though I could really cut it up myself and save
Mm-hmm.
money, even though I can't cut stuff up. At
Mm-hmm.
this point in life, it doesn't work for me. I have to be able to go, I deserve to make this decision for myself right now.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I'm not holding all the things. So that's like a really simplified
Yeah.
way of saying it is that even though it might not be talking about a particular issue or it may not seem relevant in that moment, it has to be the lens
Mm-hmm.
that's always still there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. And
and
I
when it's
think,
not being
yeah.
like, oh, let me put it back on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The thing that I will say on here that I really, really like out of the principles, one
Mm-hmm.
is interdependence.
Yeah, I was thinking about that one too.
Yeah, that, we meet each other's needs as we build toward liberation, knowing that state solutions inevitably extend into further control over lives.
And so relevant right now.
It's like magic, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, how did they know? Well, because it's always been this way. It's just,
Because it was written by people of color.
yeah, it was written by people of color. We're like, hello.
Yeah.
It's not new at all, but it's more obvious right now. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, right, we can't rely on state solutions because the interest is not the same. That's the through line, I think, with these principles is it's all about like commitment to cross disability solidarity,
Mm-hmm.
collective access, interdependence, collective liberation. It's very much about the collective and moving as a collective. One of
Mm-hmm.
the most important things to me here that I do feel like I understood easily because of my experiences in life was leadership of those most impacted.
Yeah.
So for me, if I want to know about autistic people, I'm not just going to ask certain autistic people. I want to know from non-speaking autistic people, multimodal communicators that are autistic, people with intellectual disabilities who are autistic. Like, I want to know really what's up.
Yeah.
And for who knows the most, it's them
Mm-hmm.
because they're not getting the privilege that a bunch of us are getting.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Well, and a couple of the things there, like cross disability, solidarity, and interdependence,
Hmm.
those things are so complicated. Like, to be
Hmm.
interdependent and try to meet each other's needs involves all these practical navigations of these power dynamics,
That
you
have
know.
so many barriers
Right.
at
To
every
get a
part.
kid and a parent to listen to each other is work.
Yeah, and because they're in a capitalist system, they
Right.
have the pressures of the
I
school
mean, that makes it
system,
scarier.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Because
fact
when
that,
do parents have
yeah,
time and energy for that?
no. And we don't have the right to housing or medical care. And so it
Yep.
gets scarier. You need to do
Yep.
your homework because it's scary out there.
Yeah, and then how are they going to access therapy? Like I always am like, look, I'm not a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you should consider also adding therapy. At the
Mm-hmm.
same time, it's very rare that I could even recommend anyone
Yeah.
because anyone I'd recommend usually doesn't take insurance because people are
Mm-hmm.
bailing from the system right now.
Yeah.
And if they do, it's like the parent, it's just there's so many barriers that I've tried to help people vet people for whether it's therapy, neuropsych. It is so hard. There's so many other barriers that we end
Yeah.
up with very few choices unless the family has a lot of money.
Right.
And I do work with families who have money because not exclusively, but some families because
Yeah.
I do charge for my services as well.
Right.
When I work with deaf people, whether it's deaf individual, deaf parents of a child, or hearing parents with a deaf child, I don't charge for any work relating to deaf people.
Mm-hmm.
I do it pro bono specifically because I already make my living
Right. I
because
was
of
going to
deaf
ask about
people.
that. Yeah.
And so I feel like I do pro bono interpreting as well. We all, kind of we're expected to. It's not like lawyers where you're required.
Yeah.
But you're expected to do some, and I do particularly for deaf people,
Mm-hmm.
who shouldn't have to pay for interpreters ever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for things that aren't covered, there's certain states, funerals, things like that don't get covered.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that, but to me, it's like I don't want to have a second way of making money off of deaf people. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't want deaf people giving me money directly, like ever.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me
Mm-hmm.
really uncomfortable. Unless it's a friend of mine or something that's
Because your profession is borrowing their language and
Bec-
culture, basically.
yes. And in
Yeah.
addition, deaf people are making, and on average and overall, significantly less money than interpreters.
Yeah.
So when I go to interpret for a deaf person at their job, I can guarantee I'm probably making more money than them.
Mm-hmm.
They're working there, I'm coming there to interpret and I earn more.
Mm-hmm.
So it's to me it's like it's not going to fix anything, but I can afford to do that. And
Yeah.
it's such a weird intersection. Where are they going to find somebody who could help with an IEP for an autistic deaf kid? Like you'd
Right.
have to pay a lot of money, and even then, it's not really a
Right.
lot of people doing it.
Right.
So if there were deaf people out there doing it, I would refer to them,
Right.
but there's
Yeah.
not much.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like we should wrap up.
You don't want to go
Um,
for like 20 hours? We probably could. I feel like
I
there's things I still
confident.
didn't talk about that I meant to.
Oh, I know. I'm sure there are. I mean, we could always talk again if you feel like, oh, we really need to get this in there. But I do want to ask you my sort of wrap up question, which is there something that stands out to you as like a kind of mantra or anything that helps keep you oriented in this work that you're doing?
Yes, and of course I thought about this because it's a
Mm-hmm.
really good question, but it's also one of those things that's hard for me to answer because I want to say 5 million different things.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, we'll just pick one. And then I'm like, I got nothing. My brain is blank. So I was like, well, let me write it down. And then of course I didn't.
Mm,
Um, there's a number of them. There's really two main ones, and I'm blanking on the other one. I say it all the time too. Um,
mm,
there's a very misattributed quote,
mm-hmm.
which as an autistic person irks me.
Yeah.
There is a writer he used to have a Facebook page and kind of blogged a lot
Mm-hmm.
about all these issues we're talking about.
Yeah.
And his name is Robert Jones.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
He
yeah, yeah,
is
yeah. He has a Substack now, doesn't he? Does he?
maybe if I don't already have it saved, I need to go check it out.
Okay.
He probably does. So I was a huge follower of his when he was going under Son of Baldwin.
Yes. Yeah. He
Yeah.
has a Substack. Yeah.
Okay. I probably am on it. I just forget to read
Hmm.
everyone's
Yeah.
blogs. So he eventually he wrote a novel that got published, and then he basically archived a Son of Baldwin page. But
Hmm.
it was an extremely activist space.
Yeah.
He's one of the very rare people that I feel like I never I don't remember him ever kind of messing up. Like he kind of, and I think he might have, and then he apologized for it,
Uh-huh.
which was like perfection. Which, like, I'm never looking for perfection, just to be clear, because people love to
Right.
say, well, progressive people are looking for perfection. I am looking for growth, intent, trying, you know, asking permissions, like that kind of stuff. So to me, he was one of those very aspirational people.
Yeah.
Um, he talked about race, he talked about gender, he talked about gender identity, sexuality, every single thing that's in disability justice. Like he just really was like all about every issue.
Yeah.
And that was, I spent a lot of time on his page, interacted with him a lot, read everything of his. And a quote that he said on his page, Son of Baldwin, it got misattributed to James Baldwin,
Oh, yeah.
which
Hmm.
is the Son of Baldwin is a reference to James Baldwin. But he said, we can disagree and still get along unless your disagreement is rooted in the denial of my something and my right to exist.
Yeah.
I think my humanity and right to exist, something like that,
Yeah.
which a lot of people know now because it got misattributed to James Baldwin and got circulated all over the internet many times. But that was really poignant at the time that he came out with it. Not that
Hmm.
it's not now. I just think more people have come across that idea now. I think it
Yeah.
was extremely well put at the time. And to me, what that means, that's a guiding principle, is that when I think, am I being too whatever? Or am I
Hmm.
being, because I'm always accused, I've been accused of being a bully because I don't allow people to come into my real world or online space and say things that are harmful. So I've
Yeah.
been called a bully. I've been called lots of other bad things. And so when I go, wait, am I one of those things?
Hmm.
I go, no, you know what? This is one of those times
Right.
that you're denying somebody's right to exist, mine, someone else's. And for me, as part of disability justice, no one is free until everyone's free. That's another quote that I don't know if it's attributed to somebody, but
Yeah.
your liberation is wrapped up in my liberation.
Right.
That kind of stuff comes from Audre Lorde as well. Like, we can't, you do your thing, I'll do my thing.
Hmm.
That's not how it works. Like,
Hmm.
even people who are on opposite sides of the globe from each other and are doing completely different things are impacting each other.
Hmm.
It's all like we can't be disconnected. We have to be collective as much as possible.
Hmm.
And that quote really helps me sort of, it's been a guide for me as I've changed from people pleasing,
Yeah.
which is what I was growing up, people
Yeah.
pleasing, going along, keeping the peace, rah, rah, to now where people have called me the exact opposite of that.
Right.
I still think I'm respectful and kind, but people who want to test my boundaries don't think so.
Yeah.
Um, because I'm direct. And that's kind of where I got a little bit of that ability from is quotes like that I could go, this nope, this is what I'm doing. And it's coming from a person and a community that was built that I trust.
Hmm.
And so that's
Hmm.
that aspirational. I want to be the person who sets clear boundaries and makes people feel safe, who are going to
Yeah.
act safe.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't want to allow harmful people in because I grew up around harmful people. Even though
Hmm.
some people tried to keep some of the harmful people out, they always get in. And for my kid, I had to make the circle really, really small. And I have a lot of guilt about that. But then I always
Yeah.
go, nope, but they deny our right to exist.
Hmm.
So they don't get
Hmm.
a ticket.
Yeah.
So that's been a
Yeah, for
really, really
sure.
big one for me. The nope. I had the other one and then I lost it.
Well,
That
I mean, when you combine that one with the disability justice principles,
Hmm.
it gets even more powerful because it's like, what does that mean, your humanity and right to exist?
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean to have access to that, even?
Right. Because
And
people will say, well, nobody's stopping you
right,
from doing X, Y, and Z. And it's like,
right.
well, but they really are. They've just convinced you that they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the
Mm-hmm.
twisted part. And we need people to go, really? Let me check into that. Let me
Mm-hmm.
learn about that. If
Yeah,
I say this isn't accessible to me, I need people who go, oh, okay, how can we make it accessible to you? How can I help?
right,
Not in what way? What do you mean? You were just doing
right.
it yesterday, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of that I assume that other people are the experts on what they need
Right.
and what works for them. And if it's not harming anyone else, and if it is there a way we can mitigate that? Like that's people's right to exist, is right to exist as is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's not just, I think that quote often people use it as a way to shut down directly hateful statements on the internet. That's where I see it a lot.
Yes,
And
it's been flipped
yeah,
a bit.
like I can block this person because they are saying hateful things, but if you pull that right to exist as more than just surviving, right? More than
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. It's
existing isolated without speech or without access to things. It's
yeah,
more
without
than that.
safety, without love, without connection, without I
Yeah,
mean, we know that people deteriorate quickly without human touch.
right,
So people who need to be in proximity of people and can't be, like
right,
that's denying their humanity. That's inhumane.
right. Exactly. Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
it's it's kind of like for me, yes, that quote, like I said, that quote has really blown up. I think when I first saw it, it summed up everything that I was trying to like figure out in my life at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I think anything that becomes popular, people misunderstand, especially because like that page and that community doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like they don't have any context for where
Yeah,
that quote came from, for his writing, unless they've gone and looked for it. And a lot of
yeah.
times they think it's James Baldwin's.
You're right.
Can't find it anyways.
Yeah.
But, and there is a lot of James Baldwin, same thing, that really has informed my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about Son of Baldwin is that it took things further
Mm-hmm.
and it was always towards the direction of Black women.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, if you look at the people with like the least amount of power in a system, just like in disability justice principles,
Mm-hmm.
it's Black women. If you orient yourself towards Black women, so many other things will already be better
Yeah.
because Black women are really so far out of being given anything that
Mm-hmm.
they need or deserve, and
Mm-hmm.
they take the worst of like society. So if you're a disabled Black woman, for example, you need a lot of people behind you just to get you like anywhere,
Yeah.
and it's so if you that's what I learned is you orient towards the people with the least power or that your privilege can do the most to support, you ask, of
Mm-hmm.
course, but
Mm-hmm.
that's you don't orient towards a well-known, disabled speaker
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. You want to
Mm-hmm.
orient towards the person who can't get access to even attend that event because it's not accessible,
Right. Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I feel like that's probably a good place to end.
Yep.
I really appreciated you taking the time to talk to me. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me. And, if you want me to talk about literally anything else and you want to,
Yeah. All right. It was really good to talk to you.
you too.
You've been listening to Untangling Ourselves. More information about Rayne's coaching, consultant services, or interpreting can be found in the show notes, as well as links to the disability justice principles and more. If you appreciated this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share the podcast with a friend. It helps a lot. Thanks.